All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If it is morning for you, and if not, then good day to you. I am Stephen with GooseOps, and today we're going to be getting back into OpenClaw and kind of the setup that we were working on before. So a couple of things that we've learned so far is that the OpenClaw installation, like just the actual installation of the OpenClaw binary itself, the OpenClaw command, on Linux is pretty simple and straightforward, and you do get the command pretty easily. If you don't have npm or node on your machine, then it will install it for you with the installation script. What's becoming more and more apparent as I've gone through it, as we went through it on Friday, and as I'm going through it now, is that the documentation around niche scenarios or use cases is going to be a little bit lacking. Not that they haven't tried, and I suspect it will just continue to improve, but only because most people are not doing what we're trying to do today. Most people are going to bring an API key to an AI service of their choosing, and aren't going to be hoping to try and connect it up to something running locally at the house. So I'm going to time box this to 30 minutes, this attempt to 30 minutes, and if I can't get this to work, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our machine that runs Olama and see if we can get it to run there. So it might not even take me 30 minutes to give up on this effort. But what we're trying to do, sorry, to back up just a hair, is we are trying to get OpenClaw running. We're trying to get OpenClaw to talk to or to use our locally run models. By locally run, I don't mean that they're running on the same machine as OpenClaw, but rather they're running on another machine that is in our local intranet, our local, the two machines are on the same network. So OpenClaw is on one machine, Olama, which is running our OpenAPI compatible API for different models, is running on a different machine. And then we're controlling this remotely through SSH to these machines. And then hopefully, if we can get all that working, fingers crossed, then what we're going to do is try to hook it up through our own locally running Matrix server, which is a chat server that we run here locally as well. Now that will probably still be over the internet, even though it is running locally, just because that's how the domains and things work for the Matrix server, and I didn't run those all on local. When I built it, I didn't build that Matrix server specifically for local chatting. I built it for online chatting. So we will be going over the internet, but theoretically, aside from it being over the internet, since everything should be encrypted end to end on the Matrix server, or at the very least be running over HTTPS, we will theoretically, that will be the only time it leaves our network, and that means that all of the application layer stuff will be running on our machines that we control and own. And so that's kind of the goal here, is to be running all of this on something that we own and run and own. From a security perspective, from a data privacy perspective, that's what we're trying to do. Now, that was a long explanation, and we didn't quite finish up on what we all got through. So last week we got through the onboarding process of OpenClaw. We skipped a lot of stuff, and we were like, well, we'll configure all of this later, because there were not options to use Olama as a provider when we came to picking out the models and providers, and so that wasn't great. And so we have to go in and configure it later. And but we skipped basically everything else. I think I did install one skill just to have something available. I don't even remember what it was. So we can figure that out when we get there. But again, that's about as far as we got. We spent a lot of time trying to configure OpenClaw, probably 30 minutes trying to configure OpenClaw to connect to our Olama host. And it seems that we've followed the instructions. I suspect we're just missing something. And so I don't know what we're missing. So we're going to kind of back up and use some of the more defaults instead of playing around with as many of the values and things like that, and see if we can get back to a functioning state, and go from there. But we did find the config file. So one of the things that's not, I don't think, explicitly stated is where do you configure these things. And so in your installation, so if you're running on Linux and probably Mac, but probably not Windows, there's going to be a dot directory called OpenClaw in your home directory. All right, and that is where it puts all of the configuration for OpenClaw. So if we go into that directory, let me make this just a hair bigger. hopefully you guys can read that. Right, in here we have an OpenClaw.json, and notice it appears that OpenClaw makes its own backup every time you run onboard, which is kind of cool. That suggests that OpenClaw is trying to give you the opportunity to roll back to a previous state. If you run OpenClaw onboard or OpenClaw configure a lot, this is going to become really, really nasty and full of, I mean, the files aren't big, but it's going to be really ugly. So I do wonder how they're going to take care of that in the future, but it does give you an opportunity to roll back to a previous state if you need to, it appears. But anyway, if we open it, if we hop into this this file, what file? So the configuration file is OpenClaw.json. In my immediate diving into the documentation, I didn't find this, and that's super helpful if you're going to be doing any of this manually. You're not always doing it manually, right? Sometimes you're doing this through the wizard, and when you do it through the wizard makes this file, and then you're good to go. What's frustrating is that the Ollama setup wasn't in the wizard, and so we had to do this manually, and we don't have that information like, hey, what am I supposed to do manually? What am I supposed to actually touch manually to fix this? Okay, and so anyway, that's the configuration file, OpenClaw.json. At least I'm assuming that's what it is. I haven't been told else or otherwise, and I haven't found a better configuration file. Okay, so if we look into that configuration file, what we find is something pretty similar to what you'll see in other applications or softwares that connect up to models that are locally hosted, or any model for that matter, right? And you'll see things like the model's object and the provider's object, and then you can give it some information, right? And so here, this quick start guide in Ollama, it's saying, hey, run Ollama. This is assuming it's all running locally. All right, it says, hey, put this in. Set this as Ollama local. It sets your API key as Ollama local, and then it says agents default model, and then it gives you a very simple text. Down here we have something very similar. Oh, this is interesting. So, okay, so one thing that I was looking at is I realized that this model is not exactly the same because it has a colon in it, and I did not change it everywhere. I was messing with this a little bit earlier, right? And so before we just had this much, glm-4.7-flash, and I realized that in my current Ollama machine, I'm going to make this bigger, and we'll pull in another terminal here. Right, if I run Ollama list here, I'd realize, oh, it's named this. Also, the ID is this, and the ID over here is this. So now I'm wondering if this is the ID that's supposed to go here, and this is the name that's supposed to go here. So now we've got a couple of things to try that I haven't thought about yet. So that's cool. All right. So, but one thing I just realized is I changed it up here. I added the colon Q and then the quantized definition there, but I didn't do it down here. And so I wonder if that's what I'm missing, is this needs to be Q4_K_M, and then the same would also be here. Q4KM, like that. And then I think we can run gateway restart. Okay, it restarted, and if I open the TUI, do we get where we need to get? Before we were getting 404s saying the model wasn't found. Okay, that's actually interesting. So we're getting that's not found. Sorry, that's not how you get out of there. It's Control C. Okay. Let me see what it says models. So if we run the model status. Okay, so what we're trying to do right now is hook up to the Ollama that is running on this machine. So this machine is running on private IP that ends in 103, and this is running on a private IP that ends in 105. And so what we're trying to do here is connect this machine to this machine. There we go. Okay, so this says here's the configured model. There's the config. Here's the agent directory. Here's the default. We have the :q, so that's correct. We don't have any fallbacks, and that's fine by me. Okay. Run llama ps. There's nothing running. Okay. So anyway, point is, this is over here. So I'm going to grab this ID, and we're going to try and throw it in here and see if that changes anything. I have a sneaky suspicion this is not going to change anything. Shoot. Let's restart the gateway, and then let's open up the TUI and see if we get anything new here. Okay. Something happened. Oh. That's new. Whoa, it was the ID. Okay, we got it. The ID is actually the ID. That's new. I've never had to plug in. So the ID, I believe, is the first, whatever, how many is it? 10, 12 characters of the hash of the download, if I'm not mistaken. Never had to put that into an alarm or into a provider block for this, so that's brand new and cool. That's awesome. This is taking a long time though, and it shouldn't be running that slow. 41 gigs. That's interesting. This is not a 41 gig model. It's a 19 gig model. Let's see that here. So that's weird. It should not be that big. We may have already hit our problem. Alright, let me see. If I look at... is this just slammed? Yeah, it's slammed. And swap is filling up, I bet. Yes. That's really big. Yep, NVIDIA slammed. And that slammed. I suspect this is going to error out. So that's interesting. So I've had this happen actually with other things where... Yeah, okay, cool. So I bet this is going to die off. If I run this, this is going to go away. Oops. Make this a little bit smaller. I've had this happen where this isn't great. Actually, this is a really frustrating possible problem. Where, let's see here, is NVIDIA SMI, did it die off? Not yet, it's still running. So the GLM is a 19 gig model, which should obviously fit on the 24 gigs of VRAM that we have. But when it's running here, it's saying it's 41 gigs, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So either I'm ignorant of how these local models are being defined, like if I run Llama list, right? So that's not great. Let's try. So I know this one is small enough. So let's add this one in there and see if we can get a little bit further. I don't know if this one has tool calling, but we're about to find out. All right, let's back out of here. Let's do. Okay. Well, at least we figured out what the problem was. Okay. So over here in their documentation, right under this, okay, ID is not. Oh, there you go. That's why I thought it was that. The ID. Unless it tried to run it twice. Anyway, this ID, in fact, may not be the name. Actually, no. Now I'm wondering that if that's not right. I'm wondering if it ran it twice now. All right. Well, we got somewhere. We actually got it to do what it was supposed to do. So let's do this. Let's take this ID away, and let's go back to GLM 4.7 flash Q4 underscore K underscore M. Let's just do this again. Let's restart the gateway. We're gonna restart Llama. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, that's gonna restart. It should mean that we have nothing in here, and we should have nothing in here. Yeah, there's nothing right. Okay, cool. Alright. Cool. Alright, so we started it. If I open up the TUI this time, that's new. Okay, okay, okay. You help me with something. Here's what I think happened. I think it loaded twice. I hear I hear things booting up. Well, connected and idle. You can help me get OpenClaw running with a remote Llama server. I think that said, okay. I'm not getting an error. It'd be great if I got an error. It's processing very quickly, but it's not doing anything. And the llama's not spinning up the model. Okay. Can I do this? What if I get rid of the name? Does this run? Invalid, yeah. Alright, so that doesn't work, so it needs a name. Oh, fudge. Okay. Oops. And then Does this work? Yep, cool. I really don't like, I'm just gonna, OpenClaw team, I understand why it's red, and it's red for being a lobster, but red in most CLI tools is an error, and so when you get this red thing, and it pops up and it's a successful command, this looks like an error. So, not a fan of the color. I understand why you chose the color, not a fan of it, because every time I see it, I'm like, oh, what did I break? And then when there is a problem, and there is a break, the error is in red, but the initial message is kind of in orange. So I get the fun about it, but from a user perspective, it's not my favorite. Obviously, you get to do whatever you want. It's open source software. Do what you wish, but I think that's a little bit difficult to deal with. Okay. I'm immediately getting a disconnect from the machine. So the error the error that happens after you type in a command in the TUI, gateway's not connected. That's interesting. Okay, we're reconnected, and I get disconnected from the gateway for whatever reason. It's like the gateway shuts down. Maybe is there a stop? Maybe I shouldn't be running the gateway during this. Maybe I should only be running the TUI. Is that a thing? Okay, so we can just stop it. And if I do TUI, gateway not connected. Okay, so no, the gateway needs to be started, it seems. I'm going to give it a second to see if it connects back. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Okay. Okay, so that's not a thing. Okay, we're started. Yeah, there's some text down here that when it starts up that I don't get to see. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Something about sending this command in the TUI is breaking the gateway instantaneously. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go back to the ID. I don't like that happened. Sorry, llama list. So let's do this. Let's grab the ID. If that's what it is, then let's use it, right? So models. But I don't understand. So this is the model definition, and then down here we have agents. So I'm not sure why. Maybe default primary. This is saying, hey, which ones to use. I need to figure out what this definition is for, this model's definition down here. Maybe that model's definition and this model's definition are the same, or should be the same? I don't know. I have no idea. Whoops. Alright, we're going to restart the gateway. And we're going to launch this again. And we're going to TUI it up. Okay. It's also possible that I have a weird configuration in my tokens and context, right? So I'm giving, these are my maximums that I'm allowing. It says we're connected. This seems to work. Okay, so the ID in the documentation for the model is in fact not the name of the model. Okay, it still says it's 41 gigs. That's gigantic. It should not be 41 gigs. Okay, so I'm going to let that run. It's not going to work. But the point here is that this ID under the models block, not the agent block, that's different, apparently, right? This is the ID of the Olama model, the actual like hexadecimal hash of the model, not the camel case name of the model from the Olama website, which is what I thought it was. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. So we're going to change the context window. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe this the context window is so gigantic it's giving that much. Shoot. Let's do that. Let's change the context window. So we're gonna control and get out. Okay, and then we're gonna do this. And we're gonna restart Olama because it takes forever for that thing to die off. Okay. Okay. So I had made my context window gigantimous. Let's just do this. This is the context window that it originally said to start with. So we'll start with that. Restart the gateway. I think this pulls in the new configuration. It must because that's when it works. Okay. So and then we're gonna do this. That's fit. So it actually did get to an answer. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Okay. I'm checking to see if you're working with my models I have configured. Alright, this is going to launch again, because that's probably correct. Oh, it has 512 again. This is probably not going to work. I don't know why it still says 512. Unless that's pulling from the model. No wonder it takes forever to load. Let's see, I have 16 and 24. So I've only got 41 gigs enabled, and I have 4 gigs of swap. So that's why it's actually functioning, is because it actually can load everything into swap and or memory and or VRAM of the machine. So I guess what we can do next, maybe, is to fill it up. Well, actually, now it's not even running. It should have been up and running by now, I would say. Or 8,000 isn't enough. Okay. Okay. Let's change this to, I don't know. What did it have on the documentation? Yeah. Context window 8,000, max tokens 80,000. Okay. So let's change this item to something bigger than that. Let's go with 32,000. But not 512,000. Okay, 41 gigs still. So the context is gigantic. I wonder if the context is that big because of how I have Olama running. So this context size is from, I wonder, ooh, I have a thought. This may be not an issue that most people are going to run into. Okay, so if we open this up, I don't think there's any secrets in here. Yeah, so I've got this thing made at 512,000 because it's just huge. So what if I did instead 128,000? try again. Let's see, can you help me? We had got no output because when I reloaded the daemons, it broke things. So now I'm wondering, it's my context size. That makes sense, actually. Okay, so this might actually get a reasonable output, and I did not realize that context took up so much space. So I'm learning something myself, guys. Hello, hello. Hello to me, learning something. Okay, so my context window needs to be much smaller. So 512 context, that explains a couple of things, actually, my setup. Okay, so I learned something today, that context is takes a gigantic amount of space. Why did I get no output? Well, anyway, context takes a big amount of space, apparently, on the machine. So that's something I learned new today. So let's take this down to something a little bit more reasonable then. Let's do 64K, or maybe 32K. Reload, restart Llama. Okay, and boom, boom. And let's see here. This is 32. This is our biggest context window. So let's take this down to 16, just to make sure that everybody's running normal. We're gonna restart the gateway and open up the TUI. Okay, let's see if I can actually get a response in the thing. There we go, down to 22 gigs. This thing's gonna run super fast, theoretically. If I don't get an output, I'm gonna be pretty frustrated. No output. Huh. Why am I getting no output? No output. I think something's wrong here in the TUI. So let's do this. Let's switch to a different model. So over here it actually has Llama or Llama 3. I don't think I have that one. This is the most recent version of Llama, I think. And I was told that GLM 4.7 Flash was the one to use, but maybe it's because the Flash, it's not just talking about the quantized version. So one that I do know works really well is, as far as tool calling, at least some tools, is the Quencoder. So Llama list, we're going to change this up a little bit to something that I know works, which is, that's all fine. So the ID that we're going to be looking for is the Quen3 coder, this guy. So this is the ID that goes in here, guys. The ID from Llama. Alright, we're going to grab this name. And I'm just going to put that everywhere for now. There's probably a faster way to type that in. Those of you Vim maniacs out there who know how to use Vim much better than I do would love to. Yeah, that's true. I don't have to put the... Oh, it's not in the name, though. Cool. So let's go ahead and restart the gateway and restart Llama. And then we're going to run this guy. And we're going to say TUI. And then, can you help? I'm getting a response, and it's, yeah, but it's not showing, so I should see Quen show up over here. There it is, 21 gigs, or 100% on GPU, and then this should run. The problem with this, I think, or I bet, if this doesn't give me a good output, there we go, I got an output. Okay, so I think the problem then before with GLM Flash is that the GLM Flash version that it wants us to use is the much bigger 41 gig version, and I just don't, I could actually do that. let me think. We could do the bigger version of it with a smaller context window. If we, the non-quantized version of it, I mean. But let's start here anyway. What are you capable of? So this is what I'm doing right now. There we go. There we go. This is interesting. Okay. I don't know if if this is just a chat interface now for Quen 3 or if this is actually something. No output. That's interesting. Output. No output. So that's interesting. I must have another misconfiguration or something. I think I am getting output, I bet, because I bet if I kill this and then I open it back up, I'm going to see things. Yep. So this, okay, now I believe this is a TUI problem. Okay, so, do you know, so I had a question. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, cool. What are you capable of? This is a TUI output problem. I don't know why there's a problem here, but this is a TUI output problem. Do you know who you are? So you are not a chatbot. You're beginner. So this is reading soul.md. Don't even know where that's coming from. Probably from the repository or something like that. Okay. This is everything I did. Some files are reviewed. Just to understand. I'm not just a chatbot. I'm becoming someone with a unique identity. Not true. You're not becoming someone. You're not becoming a human. You're becoming a tool. It's fine. Yep. Okay, cool. This is interesting. So this is actually not Quen. This is actually the chatbot, this is actually OpenClaw using Quen's tool calling capabilities to give me a response. That's interesting because I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do that. I also don't know how much of this was responded to by Quen. All right, so it's still looking for an open API key. Based on the tools capabilities, here's what I can do. Okay, system operations. Communication. Alright, cool. Alright, so this is running. Let me do this. Let me get off of this over here and let's go to OpenClaw over here. Alright, so I don't have a whole bunch of things on this machine. So let's see here. What do we want? So I have Vim. I don't think I have Nano. So if I run apt list grep of installed rep nano, nothing. So if I watch that, oh, I need to put that in quotes. Okay, so if I can you install nano for me? See if it'll do that on the machine. So theoretically, this should figure out no output. That's okay. But I have nano. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's kind of crazy. So it didn't. So I'm gonna close this out and bring it back in. I want to see if it gives me, if I can see the output of that call. I want to see what it did. Okay, so can you install? I'll help you install nano. Let me check if it's already available. All right, and so exec what? So immediately new to use apt. That's interesting. Okay, that's pretty cool. It installed Nano. I just asked it to install Nano, it installed Nano. Now, to be fair, that's like 12 characters. Okay, it's more than 12. Okay, less than 2 dozen characters, right? And so for me to type, can you install Nano for me, is more than that, right? That's like over 2 dozen characters. Not many though. What is it? 5, 6, 11, plus 7 is 18. It's about 2 dozen even. So it's not that many more characters, but I didn't have to know anything about it. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Can you install UFW and configure it to only allow, let's see, to configure it to only allow SSH and HTTPS. Okay, it looks like it already gave me a response, so let me see if I can read it. This is a little bit frustrating that I've got to go back in and out of the TUI. Install Nano. Oh, wait. Okay. Can you now install UFW? If I do this, and then configure it to only allow SSH and HTTPS. Interesting. Why is that happening? So now I'm stuck, unable to send to something else. Okay. Fine. It's saying I'm 15K tokens. I don't understand the problem here. Let's see. Let's restart the gateway. Maybe try again. Okay. Can I push up in here? No. Okay. Can you install? What am I going to install? What is it? UFW. UFW, and then configure it to only allow SSH and HTTPS. Okay. That was weird. So I had like a weird blip. Let's get out of here and go to OpenClaw, and we're looking for UFW. It's installed. What? Whoa. Whoa, that's cool. That's pretty cool. All right, so what it did, oh, and I actually got the output. Okay, that's pretty slick. That's pretty slick. Let me think. What do I want it to do? Okay. Well, I'm trying to be a little bit careful. Right, I don't want to like just, okay, I need to get going with the chatbot. That's what I need to do. Okay, cool. So let's kill the TUI. That's pretty sweet. We're going to go ahead and restart the gateway just to make sure we have something fresh. Okay, so let's see if we can get it running with Matrix. Actually, I'm going to blow away that UFW thing. At sudo UFW disable. We'll just do that for now. Cool. Remove, purge, UFW. Cool. We'll get rid of the stuff that it did. I don't mind Nano being on there because that's a cool tool. Okay. All right. That's awesome. Okay. So what did we learn? We learned that this configuration here in this setup, for whatever reason, and maybe it's because how I have installed Olama, It has nothing to do with this documentation. Like maybe this does work in certain situations, but the ID here is not the name from Olama, but rather the ID in the Olama application itself, right? The ID that you get by running Olama PS, right? Or sorry, Olama list right here, right? It's this ID that you get under here, which, like I said, is the hash. I believe is the first 12 characters of the hexadecimal hash from the SHA-256 algorithm. That's what I think it is. Maybe not 100%. Maybe that's not true, but that's what I think it is. Anyway, that's where you get your ID from, right? Same as like a Docker ID or something like that, Docker container ID or whatever, right? It's listed here. And then we also learned that the GLM 47 flash :K4_K_M doesn't appear to be powerful enough to do the tool calls that we're trying to get it to do. It just seems to just not work. Although, maybe that wasn't... Okay, hang on a second. Let me go back. Actually, now that we know that the TUI was what was broken, the output of the TUI, what if we bring back... Hang on, one more thing to test before we go and get a matrix going on. Let's see. So we did Coder. We got Quen3 Coder to work. No, the tool calling works really well. I'm realizing now that I don't remember specifically if I... that was the wrong button. Stop. I don't remember specifically if we learned that the TUI was broken here, or if we learned that the TUI was broken. I'm not remembering which time we learned that the TUI was broken. And so it actually may not, in fact, be the GLM's fault, now that I'm thinking about it, right? Because we learned a lot of things in that short period of time to get this up and running. Now I'm wondering if it was, in fact, just the TUI's fault and things were happening. So maybe this does work, and it just wasn't showing in the TUI. So let's go ahead and restart the gateway. Let's watch Olama PS here. And then let's say TUI, okay. Oh, let me restart Olama. Oh, actually, let's do this, because I know this one worked before. Apt remove purge nano. Oh, wrong machine. I'm glad that I wasn't using... I didn't uninstall some random package that I would have needed. Okay, this should load it up. Good. Awesome. And we may or may not see an output, and that's fine. So I think I have apt wrong machine. No output. That's okay, because if I go to still wrong output. SSH OpenClaw. Here we go. I want to watch grep nano. Okay, can you install nano for me? So this, remember before, it didn't give us an output, but we did in fact get nano, and so there it is. It did it. Okay, so GLM does work. Okay, GLM flash does work. It's the TUI that's broken. Cool, that's good to know. Okay, so now if we look at the TUI, if we bring it back up, we can look at the output. There we go. Okay, so, ooh, this is interesting. What is this? This is an env. What did it exec here? These are some URLs. Oh, you know what it did? It figured out this didn't happen the first time. Okay, so let me show. If I come up here, can we see where it did it? Yeah, it didn't. It looked for nano, right? But it didn't know. It only used Debian. It assumed Debian from the beginning. this time GLM, what it did was, oh, down here, it before it ran LSB. I think that's what it did. D. No. All. Maybe not exactly that, but something like that. Maybe, I'm actually not sure what command it ran to get this. All this stuff, but it ran a command to get this information. And what it did from this is determine that it was a Debian-based system. And so then, it ran that. It installed Nano, which I have Nano now. Which is cool. Cool. Can you install bash completion? That was super fast. That's crazy. Open up the TUI. Okay, cool. So what we know now is that the TUI's output is broken. Got it. Bash completion. You'll need to reload your shell, which is 100% true. That's cool. All right. And so let's see here. Apt install bash. I have bash completion. Okay, cool. All right, that's good. So we've achieved the goal for today. One of the main goals today, which was to get it working with the local models. All right, so we've got Ollama working. GLM47 Flash does work. So does OpenCoder, which is cool. I had Quen 3 Coder, which is something that I hadn't intended to test because I had heard GLM Flash was better for all around stuff. But we got there. We got to the point where we were trying to get to. One of the things to note, again, a quick refresh. Now that that was an aside because I had realized that maybe we hadn't figured out the root source of the GLM Flash problem, and we did. Okay, so things to note. The ID here again. Trying to wrap this up before we move on to trying to work with our matrix server. The point here is that the ID is not the name like it has in the documentation. The ID is the ID from the Ollama list command. That's the ID that we give it here, and that's how it appears that that's what it uses to look things up. Maybe if name was first or something, that would be what it would use it up for. I could try something like that, but I'm not going to go do any more troubleshooting because we figured out what the problem was. Or at least one of the problems. Okay, the other thing that we learned is that giving Ollama a gigantimous context window means that it appears that Ollama preserves that memory first before jumping into a chat. So this was an Ollama side. This is not an OpenClaw thing. This is an Ollama side, and I had before, for a long time, I had 512,000 as my context for Ollama, which allowed it to balloon gigantically. And that was a problem because I recently actually, and this is how I didn't know, the reason I didn't know it was a problem is because recently I reduced my memory from like not my VRAM, but the memory on it from like 40 gigs down to 16 because I was like, oh, I don't need this memory anymore because I'm not using it. That was wrong. When you have a 512,000 context, Ollama's like, we're going to make sure we have that context available, and it fills that memory, or it reserves that memory, that it makes the Ollama process reserves that memory. So what was happening when we were running GLM47 Flash, because we had such a gigantic context, it was filling or reserving that memory, which is why it wasn't initially working, why it was kind of slow, why it was showing that it was like 41 gigs of usage, even though we were only trying to use 19, even though the model itself was only 19. So we reduced that number down to like 32,000, I think. And then in the context window here, we gave it 16,000. Okay. I do wonder if the max tokens thing is a problem, if that's why the output is being not given. Okay, what if we make this like just some ridiculously gigantic number? Let's just add like 2 more zeros to it. let's run the open. Let's do this, and then let's see if we just get. Can you? Let's see here. One thing that we didn't. Okay, we removed. Okay, install UFW and configure it to allow sh and this. It worked. They figured it out, and it was able to properly configure it, but we didn't get to see the output. I wonder if it's because the output that we were. Oh wait, hang on a second. It's still not going to show the output because it didn't restart the gateway. I think, unless it picks up the configuration immediately. Okay, no output. All right, so let's restart the gateway, which should give us that new number. And let's see here. Please uninstall and remove UFW. Let's see if we can get an output on this one. No output. Okay, cool. And so now reinstall UFW and only allow SSH and HTTPS. Okay, so I'm not getting outputs again. So it's still, I thought that might be a character thing because that is something that might have given allowed for a greater output. Hello, are you there? Do I get an output here? Okay, why am I getting no output sometimes, even though you are active, you are doing stuff. Okay, in the OpenClaw 2, when I leave the 2e and come back, I can see the bot output, but sometimes before doing so, for leaving and coming back, sometimes those votes are hidden or not shown. So to be clear, right, like I have no problem chatting with me right now. So this must have to do with default. How can I set PTY true? Oops. See if this works. I'm not confident that this is going to work. Okay, sweet. Oh, wrong button. Okay, please uninstall UFW and move its config. Let's see if we get an output here. If we get an output here, then we know what the problem was. I'm not confident. It's pretty quick though, which I expected it to be pretty quick because it's all running in the GPU. So far so good. All right, I'm gonna spend 30 minutes. I think that's how long I had for today. Let me see here. I'm going to spend. Yep, 30 minutes is what I have. This is taking a lot longer than I expected. I wonder if it got to be. Um, no, it's still 22 gigs, just 100% the GPU. Okay, an uninstalled UFW. There it goes. Oh, hey! Okay. It didn't actually give me the UFW reasoning, but it did give me this information, and so that's cool. We got an output. All right. That took a lot longer, but I suspect it's because it was going through the system and like, yeah, like all of these things. Ooh. Wonder if those were needed or not. I guess not. Okay. That's great. We're up and running. All right, so I'm gonna leave the TUI now, and I'm sorry, I'm just totally getting distracted while we're waiting on stuff. But that's great. We got it. We got it to work. We figured out what the problems were with Olama, and what we're gonna do now that we have Olama correctly configured and OpenClaw correctly configured is we're going to see, and we're running GLM Flash, the Q4 version. Sorry. And what we're going to do now is see if we can get it. We're going to spend 30 minutes ish getting it connected to Matrix. Maybe, if we can make that happen. So let's go ahead and pop this guy over here. And let's open up the Matrix documentation. Okay, Matrix. What is Matrix? Matrix is just a chatting. It's been around for a while. It's a chat app. It's decentralized. What I mean by that is like anybody can host their own Matrix server and then can connect using federated authentication to other servers, right? So I can connect my server to somebody else's server, and then the people can cross communicate to those two servers. The idea of it being decentralized is that nobody is in charge of Matrix, right, or the Matrix ecosystem, right? Everybody, it's just a big old thing of people running their own Matrix servers, and it's kind of fun and interesting. But one thing that it's beneficial for me is I can just have a chat app that I can use for my own personal needs or use cases. So what it was originally going to be, and it still may be that, is it was originally going to be the way for the open source software work adventure to run chat within the software application. And eventually maybe it'll be a way for people to communicate with me, etc. But right now I don't have it federated to other servers. It is only connected to me, my own house, my own local system. It is run over the internet because of the way that Work Adventure was going to require it, and that's how we're going to connect to it today. But again, all of the actual like chats, all of the any files that would be sent, all of that stuff is saved on my local machine, on machines that are sitting on my local network, right? And so that's kind of what I wanted to see if we could get this controlled via get OpenClaw controlled via our Matrix server. So let's see if we can make this happen. Okay, so right here, decentralized messaging protocol. OpenClaw connects to Matrix as a user. So this is theoretically we're going to be using Matrix in the same way that we're using the TUI on any home server. So you need a Matrix account for the bot. I've already done that. Once it's logged in, you can DM the bot directly or invite it to rooms. This is kind of cool, or groups. Beeper is a valid client option too, but it requires end-to-end to be enabled. I don't know what Beeper is, so we're going to move forward. Supported via plugin, direct messages, RIMS media, etc. Okay, plugin, matrix zips. So what we have to do is we have to install the plugin. This is broken before, so hopefully we can get this to run now. Actually, before we do this, do I need to get like the like most recent installation of OpenClaw installed? Do I get an OpenClaw version? I do. That's January 29th. What is the current version of OpenClaw? Does it have a GitHub? The only reason I'm concerned is it was broken before, and I want to make sure that, excuse me, that if it is, wait, is it here? No. I'm looking for GitHub. It's probably at the very bottom. Nope. Let's go to OpenClaw.ai. Alright, GitHub. We are on 2.1. Yeah, so we're gonna grab this, we're gonna grab the new version. We're gonna install the new version, and then we're just gonna leave everything alone. Hopefully it will let me do that. Okay. Cool. So there we go, it's grabbing the new version right there. Good. Like I said, hopefully it will let me just kind of keep that version installed. Or keep all the configurations and things installed. I wonder if it'll restart the gateway for me. I did onboard before, and the onboard. Okay, cool. It's migrating the setting. That's awesome. Okay, good. Updating plugins. Okay. Okay. Yep. Oh, and it's restarting the gateway. This is great. If this doesn't ask me any questions, that's really cool to know that I can just run the match. Oh, freaking awesome. Nice, and it gives me the way to get there. This is good. This is great. Okay. So matrix. We're going to install this plugin. My point was here is that I didn't have to like tell it, hey, I want to keep my old settings, or I want to do the onboarding or whatever. Okay. Which when you go through the onboarding, you can do the same thing. You can already asked you that question, and you can choose to keep it. The onboard command, I mean, so OpenClaw onboard gives you that. Okay, so we're going to install matrix. See if this just works. Oh, that was easy. Okay, we did that. Okay, browse hosting options or host it yourself. We already have that. Use the matrix login API with curl at your home server. So hang on a second. Get an access token for the bot account. So we're going to run this with the password and the username. Got it. Cool. We're going to run this off to the side. And I need to pull up my password manager because that's all over here. I'm going to do this over here so I can get the token. Alright. Oh, it's funny. I made this back before it was called OpenClaw, so it's called MoltBot currently. Just change this. Alright, so I'm going to run this curl command. Actually, I'm going to pull up the text editor. Go to window over here. this. Alright, so what I'm doing here, guys, this is a curl request. I'm assuming I have. Yeah, I have curl. Curl is, I believe it stands for copy URL. And what it's doing is basically a request to the endpoint that you give it, and then it's sending some headers. So it's you can imagine it, if you're not familiar with what curl is, you can imagine it as a way of doing a web request over the internet, but that's not through your browser. So like it's doing kind of a login situation, but instead of it being through your browser where you type in your password and username, the way that you put it, what you're doing is you're passing that as a data block instead. And so anyway, in case that helps you kind of understand this, that's what's going on there. And so this is actually going to be entitled MoltBot because I'm not going to change the user right now. And there we go. Okay. So, and then that should just work. So, oh, and then this is my domain. And then I'm assuming that API endpoint exists. I should get a token. I got a token. That's awesome. Okay. Alright, so I got a token. So then config, replace this or set. Oh, okay, cool. So what it's saying is you can get this to get the token. Use the matrix login API with curl at your home server. Yep. And then replace, that's fine. In order to get the access token. So what this is returning is an access token, right? And then we're going to configure the access token. What it's saying is you can set channel.matrix.userid and channel.matrix.password, and then OpenClaw itself will actually call this endpoint or make this request for you, and then leave the access there, the access token in the credentials section. Okay. Or config channels.matrix. Env can be oh, it needs home server. That makes sense. Matrix home server, matrix access token. If both are set with access token. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go onto this machine and add these to my bash RC, which is fine because I want it interacting with correctly with matrix, and so I don't mind if it has these credentials. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. And so, but I'm gonna what I'm gonna do is I'm going to set these in my bash RC, and then I'm gonna load them in the shell that you guys can see, so that way you can kind of see how I'm exporting them, and you won't be able to see what their values are, but you will be able to see kind of the commands that I'm gonna run to get them going. So you can have a general idea of how we would do this, but I don't want to obviously reveal this information. So matrix server, I'm assuming the matrix home server is, okay, HTTPS, okay, cool. So matrix home server, is that what it's called? Matrix home server, matrix home server, equals, and we're going to export this, equals. Okay, so right now in my bash RC, it's going to look like this. Export. I'm going to have two lines. I'm going to have one that says export matrix home server equals, all right, and then HTTPS, and then my domain.com or whatever, right? Matrix maybe. Matrix.mydomain. That's how you spell domain, right? It's going to look like that. Okay, that's going to be one line. Okay. And then in the other line, it's going to say export matrix access token equals, so access token equals, and then my access token, okay? And that is where did I get that from? Oh, there. Wait. There. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say source that file that I just put in there, and now I'm going to say export matrix access token equals matrix access token. And then I'm going to say the same thing, export matrix home server equals matrix home server. Okay, so now that's available. It was already available in my thing. And so now, what I should be able to do when set configure credentials in the environment, when set the matrix user ID should be the full matrix ID example bot. Restart the gateway. Oh, I see. Okay. Start a DM with the bot. Okay, so I'm gonna restart the gateway to see if it picks those things up, I guess. And I don't know how I'm gonna. Cannot find module. I'm a little concerned to scroll up here. So I get this error that duplicate plugin ID detected. Alright. Do I get a what's broken? I have 10 minutes. Let me respond to this real quick so that we can move it back. Okay, cannot find module. Alright, let's see. Maybe where's my GUI? Will this let me start? Yeah. Getting this error. Ah! No, don't go yet. Okay, so Shift Enter doesn't work in this like it usually does. Let's see, can we just kill that? Yeah, sweet. No output. I wonder if I'm broken again. Okay. Uh-oh. I wonder if it's because... Yeah, dang it. Okay, it's because the matrix thing is broken. Alright. Can I do like an update? Alright, well maybe we're just busted. Maybe we can't use matrix. Update. I don't know how to do that. What if I remove... Alright, it's totally breaking things. Yeah, there goes OpenClaw. Okay. I think I still have my OpenClaw directory. Yeah. Wait, hang on. Is there an... Are plugins in here? Skills. Message, agents. Wizard. No, there are no plugins in here. Okay, cool. So we're going to... We're going to install it again. And then we're going to reconfigure it. Kind of wish I had saved that information that I had before. Oh wait, no, it's still there. So hopefully when this installs, it will see that there's already a configuration. And then we can install the npm plugin for Matrix. I don't, where did it say it was? Wait. Plugins, it's saying it's in .npm global? Oh. Okay, cool, let's do that. There. Try again. 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes to figure this out. But we're probably going to have to do another session to see if we can get this installed onto Matrix and running on our Matrix server. But we would have it fully functional. What I think is pretty cool already is that it can do things on that machine that I was running it on. And so I can see a situation, especially if you're running it on a sandboxed machine like I am, where you could just like let it start installing stuff. I don't understand why it still has a duplicate. I deleted those directories. What is it bringing in? How does it know to bring something in? Okay, I'm going to have to deal with this later. We don't have time to figure all this out. So Matrix will be next time. We got it to work with Olama today and figured it out, and it was correctly talking to it, We had to figure out some Olama configurations, which we did, and we were getting to the Matrix thing, but it looks like there's some issue with an npm plugin that Matrix is installed with. Somehow we're getting duplicates or something like that. I don't know. And even deleting those directories where they exist is breaking things, which tells me that somewhere in something that's not in those directories, right? Somewhere in the OpenClaw directory. So maybe if I grep matrix, oh, it's an extensions. Cool. We'll try this time, but we're not gonna have time to configure it anyway. So we're just gonna do this and see where it goes. And we'll install it again later. But anyway, point being, we got it installed and working with our local Olama. We figured out some things there. We troubleshot that, and hopefully next time we'll be able to get the Matrix thing up and running. I'll hope to do it again this week so we can have that working and we can have the full-on end-to-end 100% in our local network, or at least the data at rest will be 100% in our local network, and we can move that forward. So that's it for me today. I'm going to call it here, and we're going to wrap it up. It looks like, oh, well, I'll go ahead and let us finish this. We're going to use the existing values. Oh, I could do the Matrix plugin right now, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to because I don't want to. There you go. Hey, cool, fine. No. Skip for now. And restart. Okay, so it still went through the onboard process. But that's okay, because I wanted to make sure that we did all that. And then we can do this later. So, okay, wrap up. I'm really bad at wrapping up because I get distracted by what's on the screen. So that's probably something I need to work on. Okay, so what did we do? Today final wrap up, right? Bottom line today. So we started being unsuccessfully connected, OpenClaw's server being unsuccessfully connected to the Olama server. After some troubleshooting and some back and forth, we found out that the problem was that the ID field in the JSON, in the OpenClaw JSON configuration file, was looking for not in fact the name of the model that we were trying to use, but the ID in the Olama service that it was downloaded with, probably some kind of SHA-SUM hexadecimal hash. Once we figured that out, we realized that there was a problem with all of the that our context froze was too high for the resources that were available on our Olama machine. That was something that had nothing to do with OpenClaw and just something to do with the way that I had misconfigured it. So context window does make a gigantic change in the amount of memory that is used. So we reduced that down to 32,000, which isn't great. That's a pretty small number, but hopefully it's a number that we can at least use short term to continue testing and working things end to end, and then move it up as we're able to or needed to. But that context of 32,000 allowed us to keep everything on the GPU, which was really nice. Then we were able to test out GLM Flash, and we were able to test out Coencoder. Both of them worked, but what we realized during the process of troubleshooting was that the TUI seems to not always output a comment or its kind of process when it's running commands. It seems in the background there was something that the PTY, we were able to make the PTY true, and it seemed to do a little bit better. We still didn't see a lot of the commands from the terminal that were being run, and that's probably fine because sometimes you don't necessarily want to see all that. Definitely, if we were chatting with it in another chat client, we wouldn't want to see all of that output. First of all, it would be very, very busy, and second of all, sometimes there may be secrets and things like that that you don't want in those in that output. And so that would make sense as to why maybe they're keeping that in the background. We saw that both with Quencoder and with GLM 4.7, it was able to install applications on the machine, which was pretty sweet actually. And GLM 4.7 seemed to handle it better, where it actually looked to see what kind of machine it was running on before it attempted to install something. So that was really cool. And so it appears that it's working as expected using the model, our local model that we have available. So the next step is to get it working with Matrix if we can. The Matrix plugin looked like it was kind of broken, so we had to kind of start over all the way from scratch, and then hopefully we can get it working. So that's it for me today. Again, hope to go live again later this week to finish the process, and then hopefully when I'm done with all of that, we can do a full-on tutorial video that's much shorter that gives the idea, gives the kind of the process for what to do and how to do this in order to get everything running fully locally from a data privacy perspective, or just owning the process from beginning to end. And so that's it for me, Stephen with GooseOps. You guys have a great day.